initially I was a Kuchipudi dancer. I would say dance is one stream which is the most misunderstood and which is the most underrated. But most people think they know everything about it because they've seen so many people dancing. If you do, suppose, a small Mohiniyattam, suppose you have a performance, somebody puts a 1 minute reel, they will juxtapose it with a very peppy number of Bharatanatyam or Kuchipudi, which is 1 minute, and they'll say, this is not dance. Spirituality for me essentially means feeling good and happy. And if my happiness is something that I get without hurting somebody else, that is the best spirituality that one can have.
Reva University presents Reva Podcast.
Welcome to Reva Podcast. We have spent almost a day together. Now, first, to start off with, can you just explain your experience that you had in Reva?
I think infrastructure-wise, it's really beautiful, and I mean, it is all the state-of-the-art facilities here. And I'm glad that the performing arts program is really going through another resurrection phase here. It is very important that universities, on a regular basis, revisit their program syllabi, and have the BOS meet intermittently. Such kind of basically restructuring, if there is a necessity. And especially you have an index studies. I hope that is also, is fully, it comes in as good as this. And I was just looking through the Mohiniyattam syllabus, and I thought it was very, very exhaustive. So far, so good.
With this, can you just give us a glimpse of your artistic journey, how it started and how you felt during those phases in the beginning?
You're asking me to give you a glimpse of my artistic journey. My God, that is, what glimpse can I give you? Because it has been so long. So I'll maybe pace it out in five phases, right? One is as a learner. That's the first phase, which is very important, which is a fundamental phase of an artist, when you learn and you get trained. The second phase is when you start performing and you do as many performances, you look at yourself. And for me, I used to look at my videos and I say, oh, so bad. And then I would try and fine-tune it. The third is when you start working, in the sense when you start creating your own work, but within the format of the tradition, or within the format of what you have actually learned. Like, for example, creating another Swatitirnar Padam, or I think during that phase, I must have at least taken 20 Muthuswami Dikshitar release, and also a lot of Swatitirnar. And so that's like the traditional phase, but you're still making your own contributions into that. Fourth phase is when you want to extend this beyond that, like when you bring your own concepts and perspectives, and you start thinking, I'm not saying out well within the boundaries of tradition, but yet you're thinking of putting your own self-expression, artistic expression. The fifth phase is when you think about society and where art stands vis-a-vis society. So that is very important. That is where art activism comes into the fore. And you're basing your work on very sensitive issues or something that you want to voice on behalf of a society or what you feel is right. So there again, a lot of choreography work happens. And for me, I think now I'm in the sixth phase, where it is even what I say is, from self-expression, it has also moved into something called spatial expression, where space gives me the motivation to work. And I'm all the uncertainties that the space has, I take it as opportunities to create. And what happens there is, any rigid thoughts of what art has been to you, what has been taught to you, what even you feel about your own self in terms of as an artist, all this will just break. And what happens is the spatial expression comes into the fore. So I think you become an extremely expanded individual and an artist, right? So I think now not every artist actually goes, most of them go to the third phase, right? And perhaps to the fourth phase where they think out the box and bring in fresh themes. But fifth is very rare and sixth hardly, right? So yeah.
As an artist, do you think that learning art, performing or teaching will have an effect on how you are as a person and how
I'll
think
tell
that
you.
effect?
I like I say, what I think today is not what I think tomorrow. Or what motivates me today to create is not what motivates me tomorrow. So basically, I'm this individual who keeps evolving every day, and I always say that we have to coexist with a democratic version of myself, right? Because there are differences even within me. Um, and when I look at another artist, the same happens there. I understand that they are coexisting with their own democratic version. But not many of them understand this. And then that is when they start being authoritarian, saying, or they dictate, this is how it should be, this is how I am. Now, there lies conflict. Now, as an artist, I feel understanding that we are all ever evolving has, in turn, made me understand it from another person's perspective also. Even if I can't relate or connect to another person, I can always respect them. And this is extremely crucial as a well-rounded artist, right? And even when I do work of different people, right? So initially you're doing so many of those Sringara Lasya pieces. Then you take up different darshanas. Then you take up, the philosophies like Samkhya and sub-philosophies inside. Then you go into atheistic philosophies. So what happens is when you imbibe all that into your work, you also embody that, but you're also detached from it because you may probably not connect to it, but in your art you are, right? When you come out, what you do is you actually learn to respect, because finally every knowledge must is good knowledge only if it benefits not only you or your immediate community of people, but to the larger humanity. And any politic, any religion, or any knowledge uh, becomes beneficial only if it addresses the element of compassion.
Do you think tradition, whatever we have that we've followed for so many centuries, it restricts us to explore contemporary ideas, contemporary themes? Do you think there is a restriction, or do you think it frees us from those?
It's like grammar, no? Language. If you haven't learned the basics of language, you at least to connect words and to make sentences. Where is poetry? Right? In poetic expressions, you're basically playing with words. They need not be in the conventional format of grammar. Similarly, tradition is a great. It's like the spinal cord, right? From which you branch out into different areas, and it gives you that kind of a foundation. And even as we say tradition, what was tradition was contemporary then, and it had a tradition much before that, right? So even when we say there is, I think out of the box. For me, within the box itself, we are in especially Indian traditional dancing. There is still so much of unexplored space within the box that we really don't need to go out of the box.
Can you talk a little about the evolution of themes that you've had over so many years of your journey?
Yeah. So like I said, initially I was a Kuchipudi dancer. I must say that. I was Dr. Venkatesha Satyam's student, and I did a lot of for me, choreography for Kuchipudi came in very easily because my first guru was Kalaimamni S. Natarajan of the Bhagavata Mela Nataka Sampradayam. So because these are very interconnected traditions, Kuchipudi came very easy for me, right? And now Mohiniyattam, I wouldn't say I was trained under one particular guru for a long time. No, I would say it was something, although I have had basics, yet it was a lot that I compulsively brought about. And I didn't have anybody to ask when I made explorations. Can I do this? Is this right? Is this wrong? I only did it out of my own intuitions. And many times it went wrong also. But the thing is, the new themes therefore didn't scare me because I didn't have anybody to ask. And ideally, I didn't want to, my motivation was not to be known as a dancer, but I just loved dancing, right? So I was fearless, I must say. So initially, it started off with within the framework of a Varnam, I would restructure the Varnam. Within the framework of a Muthuswami Dikshidhar, I would bring some new, fresh perspectives into it. Then I worked on, Shilapatikaram, which was very different then, right? When you, especially the last scene, Mohiniyattam being a Shringara-based art form, when I did Krodha, people said, the last bit, does it suit the format of Mohiniyattam? I mean, the last bit, it was really, I kind of freed myself because there at that point of time, although we knew that there you need to be restrained, sometimes you just have to let go. And then I remember then doing Kavalam Narayana Panikar's works. But apart from that, I did work, I think 24, 25 years ago, I did work on the Brahmanyama part, which is based on Krishna Janma, today which I have interpreted it with the sign language of the deaf. Then I did a work called Gopika Krishna Samvadam, based on the Chambatala of Narayana Tirthar. And there it was a conversation between Gopika and Krishna after they had spent a night together. And I remember that it was quite a controversial, because she says that the forest is so beautiful, even if it is so, it has snakes and lions. And she says, but my home, although it is with such comfort, is like the forest in your absence. And she says, I can't concentrate on my child. I can't give enough attention to my husband. I'm distracted. And there is a point where she tells Krishna that when my husband touches me, I just don't like it. And I remember when I did that, it was for Karthik Fine Arts. There was Sudha Rani Raghupati ji, there was Dr. Padma Subramanian. They clapped. So, and this was like 20 years ago. And after which Krishna says, you have to go back because you find me attractive only because you have your family back there. If I was easily available, this passion would not be there. So Krishna, to me, not just many people took it as an extramarital affair, but Krishna to me signified passion that you have for something. For some people, it could be dance. For some people, it could be their art. For some people, it could be bhakti. Right? So that was a very and from there on, I did so many work like this. There was a work that I did where Gopika sees Krishna's cosmic form, Vishwarupa, which is very different from what Arjuna saw. Because we should know that for every person, the element of the cosmic form is very different. Arjuna saw what he wanted to see then, what gave him strength. Similarly, Gopika wanted to see what she wanted to see. So for every person, even the so-called supreme is a very different imagery. And from there, I went into other work which are like when I danced at the Pakistan line of control. I did a work on Rama and Bharata and how brotherhood, two nations separated. And I told them this is the only way I can, although my icons are Rama and Bharata, but it is a universal emotion when you're separated by so many reasons. And people really felt touched, right? And then from there on started Sarpatattvam, which went into the Oscars, which was totally out of the box. And then other very mystical work like the Matrix, which is being documented now, based on the Sri Chakra. Then recently, maybe a few years ago, I did a work which questions knowledge itself, called Uchila. It has a little bit of theatre also of Kodiyattam, where she says, what is knowledge? Is it true? How do you define knowledge? It questions knowledge. And then, so there are very, very, I did a work on Buddha called the Hridaya Sutra. Then recently I did one where Gautama leaves his home. He does not want to come back. Then very recently, of course, Ahalya, that was my own way to, settle or to address my own unsettling, emotions at that point of time during COVID, where I realized that Ahalya must have been a person who was stone-like. She was not stone, but she was stone-like. So it purged a lot of my own emotions at that point of time. And then, now, of course, for the deaf, then a work uh, where I take dance to the temple space, and not the stage erected on a temple, but I co-create work in a space. But prior to that, I've done work in beaches and malls and all that. But it is very easy. When you co-create a work in a very challenging situation like a temple, your variables are very, very high. And your intended work becomes very different from the final performance.
And listening to you talk about this evolution, I feel with every work, the depth just keeps increasing in your work. So, do you think the artistic journey that you've had has had an impact on your spirituality? And according to you, what is spirituality?
It is the essence of your understanding of the self, if you can call it spirit, which has no form. You try to understand your spirit without the so-called, what I say, formless, but you need the form to get to that, right? So it is a very difficult question. I can only say that if you, in layman's terms, that spirituality for me essentially means feeling good and happy. And if my happiness is something that I get without hurting somebody else, that is the best spirituality that one can have. Other people's happiness could be something they get out of hurting people. But if it is a happiness, if it is a doctrine of happiness which makes you happy, and more importantly, people around you happy also, I think I will then call myself an extremely spiritual person.
Coming to a lighter note, can you just share the most fun you've had in between these works you've done?
Yeah, I think there have many, but one thing that I can recall very recently is when I performed in front of the deaf. And see, I had learned their, not that I'm a certified sign language, I'd learned their sign language, and I was using it for the first time in a work that I was staging in front of them, right? And now I don't know if I'm doing it right. I have no idea. I've not done it in front of people. So as I'm narrating my work in front of them, there are a group of them, I don't see the pace in which I'm doing. I don't know if it is right. I don't know if they can understand. And I'm so anxious. And I start doing it with a lot of apprehension. And in 5 seconds, they start they nod their heads to what I'm trying to say. And for me, at that point of time, I felt there was this wall breaking down, crumbling down in front of me. And it was a goosebump moment for me, because I felt, wow, I can interact with them. And you know what happens? They are not disabled anymore. They are able, because I've learned their language. So that was, I would say, one of the most gratifying, most rewarding moments of my life. Also when in Mumbai International Film Festival and all that, when this was staged, when crossover was screened, there were a group of, the deaf, and they were abled also. And it's very interesting. Now this you should know. This will excite you. It is only after, see, the deaf are sitting there thinking, we don't know anything about dance, we can't hear, right? The able also know very little about what, especially our gestures, very complicated. In a matter of, say, a couple of minutes, I have decoded our gesture language to the deaf. And they identify it much better than the so-called seasoned spectators, because they are already using it in their system. And once I have broken that, decoded it, then suddenly they become more enlightened than the prekshaka. So in the same work, in an hour, within half an hour, I can see this shift from the Prekshaka and the Nana Lokar legs. And there is confusion. Now who was the Prekshaka and who was the Nana Lokar? And many instances, right? Now, this is what you call breaking the fifth wall, is the difference between the audience. And many times you don't see this happen, right? I have heard dancers, I have heard my seniors, my gurus, all of them say, this is only meant for the class. This dance is only meant for the niche audience. We only need 50 people to watch. We are happy. It is true, right? It makes you happy. But that is also, I think, the dance form. If it is a form like Mohiniyattam or something, to understand. The form that I practice, I would say it is also the limitation of the artist when we say that. Isn't it our responsibility that if somebody comes to see you, at least in 1.5 hours, you have, at least in 5 to 6 pieces, you have one for everybody. At least one somebody should like. And it is the responsibility. Now, I also say about Shantarasa, right? I bring in equanimity to my audience. And there lies peace and harmony. That is the quintessential principle of Shantarasa. And nobody has addressed that even in our scriptures. And this I say because I have experienced it. And when I say I have experienced it, I have experienced it because I've taken the risk of bringing art like that. And I'm in a better place to talk about it right now. I think if I write a book, I'll start with summer. And the first chapter would be summer.
You are not just a dancer. A lot of people, they perform. There are a lot of performers, there are a lot of teachers. But along with all of this, there are only few people who also excel in academics. So how is that blend coming? And where did that risk come?
See, I would say doing experimental work in your dance itself is, I think every person who works on their own field is a researcher. When you put it down into writing and into the field of academics, it becomes academia. The thing is, luckily, not that, see, I still, for me, considering the work that I have done in my practice, I have not done in academy. I just need to translate every work into a piece of writing, and then that would be really extensive academia. And I'm in this process of writing it down. So I feel I started off very early, right? As a, by 21, I had 2 post-graduation degrees and I had my UGC. And I was not, that's another thing, I was not affiliated to any university. I was still a performer, making stuff and making in the sense, just enjoying what I was doing without trying to get validation from anybody. But of course, whatever validations came through, like a review, I was very happy, right? Like a positive review would make you happy. A negative review, you would still work on yourself. So somewhere when you are trying to, it is important that when you create something, you're also able to see it in terms of what has already been given to you in academics. You should also learn to question what has been given to you. When you question that, that is when you realize, are you a good academician or not? Just because somebody has explained rasa to you, you don't need to replicate that. You have to find out why, right? Just because somebody says this is Tandava and this is Lasya, just because a book mentions it is that, what is it really? Go into the roots, question yourself, question scriptures. Like I said, Eridachan says Ahalya became a stone, but Valmiki says she was, there is absolutely no reference to a stone. So you know that these things have changed over time. Knowledge is also changing over time. Also, look at it even from a more scientific angle, right? A more practical angle, more empirical angle. Like I say, most of our PhDs, we have a hypothesis. We frame it thinking that that will become our conclusion, right? We've already seen the conclusion and we are doing our PhD. Instead, you throw a hypothesis and uh, you are willing to even negate it, that becomes a good work. When you say, no, I am wronged in my hypothesis, it will be great work because somebody else can start off from that. We are so scared of erring and saying that my work in this went wrong. In fact, going wrong in thesis is equally or more important than being right. Right? So, I think that mindset really helps. Also, when you look at dance as a practice, I always say when people ask me, what theory are you basing this against? If I want, I can, quote anybody, Max Weber, Victor Turn, Henry Lefebvre. Why? My thing is, what I am doing for a creator, I'm saying, we are in a dilemma, especially in this academic system where we are also following the English system of education. You're creating innovation and side by side, you have to search for theories which aligns with this innovation. And then you try searching and then you bring a theory there. Instead, now I have started questioning my mentors, saying, I am generating my own theory. I'm calling this the fifth wall theory. So the fifth wall theory, no, nothing has been written about it. So that's a theory that I will be writing on because I've made work with it, right? So it is very important to question and question in the right forum. Forum is also either you question it in your book, not in a space like social media or Facebook. That becomes a very meek space for academic discussions where most of the time you find everybody, ranting ugly stuff there. And that is not an academic space.
Since we spoke about social media here, do you think the influence of digitalization has had a good effect on the evolution of art for the future?
Yes, I think so. Whatever said and done, we've been able to digitalize things that are, even in terms of physical things like a book, right, or papers that are withering away. Digitalization helps to preserve it. Digitalize it, for example, when I document my work, I can never do a Sarpatatum again because I'm not that age. Perhaps I've moved out of that psyche. But the moment I have documented it and put it into the social media, it stays there. And I can move on to my other work. Now, what happens for us is we are all repeating the same thing in so many stages, right? After some time, dance is also very bound to your body and very time-specific, form-specific. You may probably run out of that. You may not feel very passionate about that anymore. So documenting it is a great way of freezing that content and your knowledge or even lack of it at that point of time. I'll give you an example. When I did, when Corona came, I did an instructional video on how to, deal with social isolation and quarantine and how to keep yourself protected, And I used a kriti of, Navavarna kriti of Dikshitar for that, where he talks about the Maharoga Chakra, right? It is at the Maharoga Chakra. Now, I remember when I put that was Google trending. Suddenly, it went out of my YouTube. And when I inquired, it got flagged apparently. And I got in touch with the main person in Google and then I said, why was it flagged? He said the flagging came from China. They did not like me epitomizing Corona as an asura. So, one thing, it was very, very enlightening for me that a work of art is seen very differently from another geographical context. Sometimes they feel very, very insulted, right? So, the moment it is put on social media now, your audience is not limited to people who see you in front of the stage. It goes to different people. And sometimes I feel more than dancers, other people recognize my work better in the sense they're able to understand many things. So sometimes dancers only look at you with the fixed view, right? Why? For example, there was this work in Ashtavati that I did recently, which is Priya Charushile. So Radha's back is turned and the focus is only on Krishna. even in that Ashtabadi, really, if you look at the script, Radha has her back turned to Krishna and the focus is only on Krishna. So I wanted the audience feel what Krishna also felt, right? It's a very discomforting feel when somebody turns their back at you. And so the review came, oh, the back turned was very discomforting for the audience. And that's exactly what I. So you should think that now that work came on social media for a couple of days. And the kind of reviews I got from theatre artists was phenomenal. People saying it was such a brilliant work. But a typical dance reviewer wouldn't understand the dynamic of that. So you cater to different crowds and, surprisingly, you will find people really liking all that.
So when you're talking about all these themes that you've explored in your journey, a lot of those themes, it is not something you can just sit, talk, and people will understand. But how did you make that into an art and make it applicable for everyone so that they can feel it?
Like I always say, I believe that the best audience, the most challenging audience is the audience within. And for me, I'm a big critic of my own work. And if I don't feel excited about what I am doing, take it from me, the audience are not going to feel excited at all. So if I feel really excited, they will feel a little excited. If I feel a little excited, they will find no excitement. So this is my simple tattva, a simple logic. So I ensure that every piece I do, I'm very, very happy and looking forward to doing it. And that is one, I think it's a very simple answer to your question. Be excited about what you do. I would say dance is one stream, which is the most misunderstood and which is the most underrated. But most people think they know everything about it because they've seen so many people dancing. So you will find people talk yarns about, oh, this is not it. No, that was wrong. Oh, this is not correct. Without zero knowledge about the upgradations happening in this field, the kind of contributions that people make globally, the kind of work that goes into it, right? It is not just entertainment, but it is how you deal with literature, with poetry, with psychology, with narratology. And all this, you're actually creating even a third space. You have the concept of third space also.
Over the years, what are the changes that you've seen in the perception of the viewer? When you look at dance, there's a lot of judgment when you take it as a career or when you say that this is what you want to do all the time. So, do you think there is a change in that judgment over the years?
I think sometimes, initially we had an audience that would probably say we don't understand dance or I don't enjoy dance, right? Or they say it is too intense for me. Now you have an audience who keeps seeing these 1 minute, 2 minute reels and they think they know dance. And then if you do, suppose, a small Mohiniyattam, suppose you have a performance, somebody puts a 1 minute reel, they will juxtapose it with a very peppy number of Bharatanatyam or Kuchipudi, which is 1 minute, and they'll say, this is not dance. So they are judging based on what all these, on the speed or something they are tuned to seeing.
With this, where do you see the future? How do you see the future of art is going to be?
The future is people who are really passionate about it will continue to be passionate about it. People who are passionate about learning will continue to learn passionately. People who are not will continue to just do what they want.
Just one last question, ma'am. Through all these years of your journey, what has changed? Like when you started dancing, when you started learning, I'm sure it was more of an imitation of the teacher. So from then till now, what is the one biggest change that you've seen in yourself?
I think the one biggest quality that I always had, even while I was learning from a teacher, was that I would be bold enough to showcase it the way I like. And getting a, oh, that's not, don't do it that way, was not scary for me. For me, I was very free about doing it. And that has luckily not changed.
I, that is one of the qualities I think all of us as an artist should have, so that we are also bold enough to come up with new themes, at least talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
A teacher is like an anchor. If you don't do that, if you don't express yourself in front of her or him or that anchor, that's your only support system as a learner. And if you are not able to do it, then you can never do it, right? Because when you are doing in front of a teacher, you're willing to be corrected. You are okay to go wrong. And that trust you repose on the teacher. Most often, I don't know how many teachers actually do it that way. When the child does it, they say, no, don't. That does not look nice. Maybe try the other thing. That looks nice. That's a very positive way of doing it. Rather than saying, you do only what I have taught you, okay. Instead of saying that, maybe this one, perhaps you can try this, but that looks nice. You have to be very careful in securing the students', I think, creative energy and this freedom to express, because that's very important in life also, in every aspect of your personal life also. If you're not very honest about yourself, you can never be honest in the public.
I just hope with this, a lot of people, like you said, when you did perform for the deaf in their sign language, I think this is also another language that we have other than whatever we are speaking in. I just hope that there are more people coming up who learn this language and appreciate this language enough to have conversations like this and take it further.
I mean, it's just another language in your booty, because and it's for us, for the dancer, it comes very easily. And so some are very similar, no? For see, we do this for C, they do this, so it becomes very easy, right? So sometimes now I also adapt it in my, when I think there's this line, where goddess says, Darika Veera ni ner porina vada, So in one repetition, I say ner porina vada, So instead of doing this looks much apt. So there's a lot of give and take. Basically, these are all under the fulcrum of universal sign language.
I just hope that people try to understand this and again appreciate this a little more, so that we can have conversations. Again, thank you so much, ma'am, for sitting here with us.
I'm glad. Thank you so much that, it's easier to have conversations in these kind of spaces with people like you, well, from the academic background, who really know how to ask. And it's not very often that we get to converse like this so deeply. And as a subject, I'm sure this is a subject that needs more conversations, even in other domains.
I just hope that people try to understand this and again appreciate this a little more, so that we can have conversations. Again, thank you so much, ma'am, for sitting here with us, and after such a long day, still having such an insightful conversation with us. As a university, we are very grateful for this opportunity we have had with you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
I'm glad. Thank you so much that, it's easier to have conversations in these kind of spaces with people like you, well, from the academic background, who really know how to ask. And it's not very often that we get to converse like this so deeply. And as a subject, I'm sure This is a subject that needs more conversations, even in other domains, even in other domains.
Right. Really, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. That was a very insightful and interesting conversation with ma'am. I hope all of you have learned and enjoyed the session as much as I did. For more such engaging and entertaining sessions, keep watching Reva YouTube channel and subscribe. Thank you.